This is a video response to BigLundi, who made a video response to my video regarding the morality of abortion. Now, BigLundi, I'm not going to respond to everything in your video because mainly the whole problem you have with my video was it seemed to be not specific enough for you. And there was a reason or two why I didn't make it very specific. I left out some of the details that I thought were pretty much intuitive enough to be able to connect just by thinking about it, but perhaps I was wrong in that assumption. I will be restating my argument for you in a more specific manner, so that should cover anything else that I don't cover about your video response. But two things I will address specifically from your video. The first thing I am going to address from your video is your definition of morality. And you said, you need to give me a good definition of morality and one that should be better than mine. Otherwise, we might as well use my definition of morality. And yeah, fair enough. So, okay, here's your definition of morality. And if this is incorrect, correct me. Sometimes I'm wrong. So you said that morality is basically diminishing suffering and promoting well-being. Well, there's a problem with this. And when I say this problem, you're gonna think it's just semantical error. And it is. And I'm gonna correct that here in a moment. But the main problem with this is sometimes you have to use suffering to diminish suffering. Sometimes you have to use suffering to promote well-being. And sometimes you have to diminish well-being to diminish suffering. So this definition is inadequate, but just to be more specific, I'm going to restate your definition of morality. Again, if I'm wrong, let me know. So instead of diminishing suffering and promoting well-being, it should be diminishing the most suffering and promoting the most well-being. The most is the key, because in certain situations you are going to have to cause suffering to promote well-being. I would give an example. Say there's somebody trying to kill somebody else, and the only way to stop them from killing somebody else is to kill them. A simple situation like that. So this definition seems to cover situations that are like that. But there's still a problem with this, and I'm going to get to that in a minute. This definition is mainly utilitarianistic. Forgive me, I suck at spelling. Utilitarian morality. This is how utilitarians think of morality. What is moral is good for the whole. Do good for the most. Or do the most good you possibly can. That would be considered a moral action. Still, I have a problem with this definition of morality. And the problem is that in certain situations, to promote well-being, or the most well-being, you're going to have to make, like I said, in some situations, you'll have to end up making some people suffer. And, give an example, Communist Russia was real big on utilitarian morality. And I don't set me there. I'm not saying that because Communist Russia used utilitarian morality, therefore it's immoral, or therefore it's a wrong sense of morality. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that what they thought was good for the security of their country often ended up with millions of lives being taken. And sure, killing millions of people for the sake of the entire country would be considered doing good, doing the most good possible in such a situation. So, and I just don't believe that is a very good sense of morality, just because of that, not because Communist Russia used it or anything like that, no. But justifying things like torture and murder and slavery and things like that, just because it might help everyone else out, it might help out more people than it does not help. doesn't seem to be a grounds of justification for morality to me, simply because the ends, the means are not justified by the ends. Yeah, I don't have to write the whole thing. You know what I mean. The means are not justified by the ends. That is to say, because moral consequences will be created because of this action, therefore that action is justified, no matter what that action is. No, that's not moral. That's not morality. And if you disagree with me, I guess we just have to agree to disagree. But I do believe my definition of morality is much more efficient. And I'll let you know what that definition is here in a moment. Anyway, I'm going to go on to the second point that I'm going to be addressing from your video, and that is when you brought up the point when I said that you used the fallacy of composition. Now, whether or not you use this fallacy really depends on whether or not you're making a certain kind of argument. If you are trying to say that all persons are sentient because we, us as in modern humans, are, assumes that the part of being human has to be in complete accord to our properties as a whole. That would be to say, anybody that is human has to have everything that we have. Otherwise, they're not human. That's the fallacy of composition. Now, if you aren't arguing this, great. Awesome. If you were, then you probably need to find a different argument. Which brings me to my next point. And I know you didn't really bring up the sentience argument, but for anybody who wants to still argue the sentience argument, try to say that any persons can only be persons if they're sentient. That's not true, because if you lost consciousness, you lose sentience, but you're still a person. Yes, you had sentience beforehand. That doesn't have to do anything. You lost sentience, but you did not lose your personhood. Therefore, sentience is not a necessary condition that we should be using to define a person. That is the whole problem I have with the sentience argument. Now, moving on. Okay, this next part I'm going to be addressing, restating my argument against abortion more specifically. And to do that, I probably should be defining a few terms that I'm using. Fetus being defined as an unborn or unhinged vertebrate, especially after attaining the basic structure plan of its kind. Human is defined as, biologically speaking, a human is any microly evolved Homo sapien species of Cro-Magnons. And that is to say, microly evolved, when something is microly evolved from another species, is not such a distant relative to where they cannot give birth and not give birth to a fertile offspring. So say if there is a microly evolved species of Homo sapiens that is also a person, we as Cro-Magnons would be able to mate with them and give birth to fertile offspring. That's a human. A person is a human. Straightforward. Now, my definition of morality it's not exactly the definition that is used by the Bible, but it is in accord with the definition of morality given, at least the way that Jesus used it. And that is the state of being in accord of not denying anyone, including yourself, the ability to experience happiness. And happiness here is being defined as the ability to better yourself. This is the exact definition of morality that Aristotle used. And as you know, Aristotle is not a Christian. He preceded Christianity. This would say that morality is not a state of doing, but it's a state of being. So there are certain qualities that you would have that would make you moral, not certain actions that you would do that make you moral. These qualities would be things like courage and generosity and so on. You know, if you want to go look those up, virtues and vices, go ahead. But all of the virtues in common all promote the ability for other people and yourself to better yourself. You cannot have happiness without being able to better yourself. That's what Aristotle used, that's what Aristotle argued, and that's what my definition of morality is. Now, let's see here. Okay, justified. Why talk about morality if you can't talk about instances where there are justified immoral actions? Okay, justified is being defined as an exception to one rule of morality, to preserve all other rules of morality. And that would be in a certain situation to where if you do this or do that, you're going to be immoral either way. But one course of action will cause more moral implications than the other would, and therefore, if it's justified, it would cause more moral implications than the other alternative course of action would. And that's very similar to utilitarianistic view, except for it's not saying that doing the most good is moral. It's just saying doing the most good is justified when that's all you can do. Now, now I need to move on to my actual arguments against abortion. And before I do that, I need to define the stages of fetal development. My whole argument revolves around this concept. So, the first stage is a zygote, the fertilized ovum. The second stage is a blastocyst, a pre-embryonic formation. The third stage is an embryo, unborn/unhatched offspring in development. Now notice about these, a zygote, a blastocyst, and an embryo are not things in nature. They're not ontological entities in existence. They are states of being. They are stages. Stages are states of being. And they're states of being of something. They're not states of beings of themselves, they're states of being of something. So that is why we say human zygote, human blastocyst, human embryo, not just embryo, blastocyst, zygote. And of course, in the argument regarding abortion, what these stages what these are stages of is the stages of a human. The stages of a human fetus. The fetus is also a stage of development, because it goes from fetus to childhood, or to child, to adult, to elderly, to so on. So, the word fetus is not actually referring to something in existence, it's actually referring to the age of something in existence. And in the case of a human fetus, the word fetus is referring to the age of a human. So there you can see that a human fetus is still a human. It's just a young human. It's a human in development. And when we're talking about abortion, we're talking about the killing or the termination of a fetus, of a human fetus. That is to say, the termination of a human being. Because a fetus is only the stage or the age of the human. Now, there is one exception to this, one justified instance where I think abortion applies. And that is the case of when, if the child is born, it's going to kill the mother. And in that case, the mother has the right to defend herself. And this is what I call natural competition. Natural competition is really a case to which whoever wins, wins. It's not a matter of morality as much as it is a matter of survivability. So in that situation, when the mother is at risk of dying because of the child being born, I believe the mother has a right to defend herself and could be justified in getting an abortion to preserve her own life. That is my argument against abortion. I hope it was specific enough for you, BigLundi, and whoever else is watching. So, if I mess up on anything, let me know, and I will see you next time.